Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Red Zone, our very own sports show brought to you by the good people of This is Revolution Podcast. I am your host, Jason Miles. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We're so glad you're here. For our returning listener subscribers, and especially our patrons. Well, all right. You are the driving force behind the TIR machine, and we couldn't do this without you. Also, for viewers of the main show, we will be back tomorrow at our regularly scheduled 6 p.m. Pacific slot. I'll be discussing why we should nationalize SpaceX and Starlink with Ben Burgess. That should be a fun one, so make sure to tune into that. Also, for those that missed it, we did a special Monday stream with metalcore legend Doc Coyle of God Forbid. We talked about his latest article in Metal Hammer and Louder about gatekeeping and selling out. It was a fun show. After you're done here, make sure you go check that out. Also, quick reminder that TIR is listener-funded programming. If you enjoy watching all these shows and you have the means and feel so inclined, become a patron. You can access champagne rooms past and present. Join us for our patron-only call-in segments. Join us for our fun-ass movie nights. And also, you get our patron-only series, The Crisis Papers. Issue 7 is up now. And patrons at the Teenage Anarchist level and above receive the magazine layout for free, while every patron gets the text-only version. If you weren't sure about making the monthly commitment yet still want to support, there is a link in the description to purchase the Crisis Papers wherever you are watching or listening to this show. Click that link and make sure TIR can continue to bring you this level of irreverent, hard-hitting quality programming. Now, a lot has happened since I was on air yesterday. We're getting old, and Aaron Rodgers is a Steeler. This has been a tough week for Gen X and baby boomer music fans, as two icons and music innovators died this week. Sly Stone, who ushered in the emergence of funk music, and Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, pretty much defined what California would look and sound like for many. Both men outlived so many of their contemporaries and the artists they would go on to inspire. Stone and Wilson's creativity would only be rivaled by their legendary drug use. It's still a surprise they were able to live until their 80s. The passing of these trailblazers is a reminder that while death is certain, time is precious. We should see this as an indication that a certain era of musical prosperity and ingenuity has passed and won't be returning. AI, streaming, the ubiquity of social media, combined with the closing of several smaller music venues, might be the conditions that, along with Father Time, is the dirt on the casket of a certain type of pioneering spirit. The social and economic conditions that allowed artists to develop and even teach young people how to play an instrument have all but vanished from public education in the music industry. Artist development is a thing of the past. Nostalgia sells more than innovating new sounds. And while music may seem sonically diverse, it's not as different as people think. Country, pop, and R&B hits, more often than not, are in the same key and include the same chord progressions. So the only thing that separates the music is simply the packaging. This melancholic reflection of the passing of iconic figures causes me to ponder my own mortality. And as I get deeper into the back nine of life, I'm faced with my own physical shortcomings. One reason I don't attempt to pursue a career in music with the same fervor that I had years prior, I'm tired. I don't know if I want to hang upside down and scream until I spit blood for 47 people in Lawton, Oklahoma on a Tuesday for $35. Maybe I've sold out. Or maybe I've just moved on. There was a time that I saw no end in sight to follow my musical aspirations, but I fear that flame may have burned out. Maybe I'm just making peace with a phase in my life and moving in another, more meaningful direction. Who knows? Is my value based on what I am or what I produce? One man who continues to persevere while fighting against the clock is NFL quarterback Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers, who spent his best years with the Green Bay Packers, is approaching season number 21, and this will be his third NFL franchise as well. Will Steeler fans be treated to the MVP form Rodgers showed when he led the Green Bay Packers to the playoffs year after year? Or will they get the media circus version of Aaron Rodgers, who no longer makes headlines with his stellar play as much as he does with his conspiracy-laden comments? Either way, history says this doesn't pan out too well for Rodgers or the Steelers. I'm old enough to remember the end of Joe Montana's career. After 4 Super Bowls in San Francisco, Montana was shipped off to Kansas City. Predicted as the final piece in the puzzle that would take KC from upstart to contender, the Montana miracle would never transpire. He was gone after 2 seasons. Jerry Rice, maybe the greatest player I ever watched, was able to have a Pro Bowl season among his 4 with Oakland after San Francisco deemed him too old for the money he wanted. But Rice would flame out after being cut by the Seattle Seahawks in the preseason. A great career, not ended on the terms by the legend, but in the cost effective terms of management. The Steelers are a team in search of an offensive identity after the retirement of their longtime starting quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, and also reminiscent of another Steeler great, Terry Bradshaw. After a dynastic run in the 70s, the Steelers of the 80s never had a signal caller that could take them to the next level until 2004 when Roethlisberger was drafted out of the University of Miami in Ohio. While they never matched the success of the 70s teams, they were great teams uh, for Big Ben's tenure. But is Rodgers a return to that greatness? If so, for how long will it be sustained with Rodgers at the helm? There is a saying that history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. Will the Steelers have to wait 26 years until they win the Super Bowl again? Now, I would love to hear your thoughts on the Rodgers signing and whatever else you have on your mind. Mac, sadly, won't be joining us tonight. I say sadly because he's my good friend and I like doing this thing with him. So I'll be opening up the phone lines to hear what y'all have to say. So, that being said, let me go open up the phone lines. It's the whole process. I can't do 2 things at once anymore. MT's not here. So I have to log off. Not log off, but to get off the screen and get on the thing. So we can do the phone line. So let me do this. I'm going to do this while the phone line thing happens. So here, listen to this. Whew! It feels like it takes forever. Jesus, so sorry. So the phone lines are open. 1-877-706-9955. Again, that number is 1-877-706-9955. I'm going to try to read some of your guys' comments. Tony, any skate jousting today? For those that joined us for Jason's fun-ass movie night, you would know what that means. That is a joke about the movie we watched last night, Thrashin', the 1980s retelling of West Side Story, Romeo and Juliet, any kind of star-crossed young lover's tale where a man bangs a woman in an RV and then makes her walk home in 1980s Los Angeles, like any good man would do. Someone says, Lawton, Oklahoma, big oof, I've been there. So have I. Take that. And it's something about that town that burned in my brain that I remembered it for that opening monologue. Red Dorga says, I think Rodgers is basically washed. The Steelers will play a conservative style and end up 9-8, either missing the playoffs or losing in the first round. Oof. This is interesting because for the majority of my football viewing career, I saw quarterbacks that would hit around his age. Now he's 41 going into his 21st NFL season. And I would see people much younger than him, probably in the mid part of their 30s, start to get shipped off. I forget how old Joe Montana was when he went to Kansas City, but he wasn't 40. But he did have some pretty big injuries that cost him to lose a lot of time. One of them was a really bad back injury, and then he had a shoulder injury. And they had this young upstart guy named Steve Young. You know, football before the salary cap was a very different place. And there's a lot of things going on with the NFL at the same time that we have to kind of keep in mind, that the USFL dissolving had a lot of really good players that just took the money scattered throughout the 4 winds. And some of those guys actually were pretty good and can play. Some of those guys got really bad injuries in the USFL with really bad training departments, so they couldn't really rehab. Also, it was like the early 80s, so certain injuries would take you out all the way. But Steve Young was one of the many USFL players that really succeeded in the NFL, especially after his short stint in Tampa Bay. I watched a clip of an interview with Steve Young. I think he was doing it for BYU. And he was talking about how advanced their offense was at BYU. They were hucking and chucking it all over the field in the early 80s. If you remember, Jim McMahon, who came out before Steve Young, put up massive numbers at BYU. And also injuries, and Mike Ditka, I would say, derailed his career as well. But Steve Young said it wasn't until he got to San Francisco that he was able to play in a system that was more akin to what he had at the college level, so far advanced. And for the most part, you could say he thrived in it. You know, he didn't have the Super Bowl numbers that Joe Montana had, but you can also say that Joe Montana really benefited from playing in that system early on when it was like aliens, and no one knew what was going on. But Steve Young put up some massive numbers. I mean, also Steve Young comes into his own, around the same time as a few other really good teams in division, mainly the Dallas Cowboys and Brett Favre and the Green Bay Packers. I can't really think, maybe the Bears, but the Bears only really have that one season. And pretty much that same team played those Niners. The Niners had beat them the year before really badly. So I don't know. Joe Montana really didn't have the Giants. Not really. I don't think the level of competition was as stiff for his Super Bowl run as maybe Steve Young's. Maybe you guys disagree. You can call in and tell me that I'm wrong. But that's a long response to that one question. Dr. Claw, what are you saying here? He says, in that 80s period, they could have drafted Pittsburgh's prodigal son, Dan Marino. Yes, and we all know the story about that I think is very different than that of Shador Sanders. I think the NFL draft, which at this time is still being held in a hotel lobby, I think it's all one day. I don't think was it even broadcast in 83? I don't think it was. I could be wrong. If it was just ESPN. But if you've seen footage of the 83 draft, they're still on folding tables with like a helmet and a little phone on the desk, taking trade calls. But there was rumors about Dan Marino's drug use, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of players Pittsburgh could have taken. And in their defense, the player that they did take was in a horrible car accident that, killed his career. So we don't know how good or horrible that person could have been. So who knows? But Pittsburgh definitely had quarterback issues. I don't think they drafted the position well. I think they felt they had the heir apparent in not Mark Wilson. What was his name? I can't think of his name. Maybe it's whoever's watching it probably think of his name. I know he had one of those porn/cop mustaches. Wasn't a fan. Then they had a brief run of being interesting with Tommy Maddox, who was a cast-off from the Denver Broncos. Cordell Stewart. I think they went to the Super Bowl with Neil O'Donnell. I can't remember if they drafted him or not. If they did, he was a late round pick. So they kind of swung and miss until they got Ben Roethlisberger, which is the Terry Bradshaw story all over again. So is it going to take them that long before they get the quarterback position correct? I don't know. And drafting, I don't think is a science. Mark Malone, thank you so much. Mark Malone. I was thinking Sam Malone. Todd Blackledge was a Chief, I thought, first. And then he went to the Steelers. Bubby Brister was not a first-round pick. I forget when he gets drafted, but it was not the first round. Third? Damn, Robert Booth said back when the NFC Championship was a real Super Bowl. Robert Booth, you must be a Niner fan. It's fucked up. Until concussions got poor Steve Young too early, his career got seriously cut short. I don't know. He had a good run. Would he have won more Super Bowls in the late 90s with that Niner team that was starting to get older? It's not like Jeff Garcia came in there and they were great, but maybe that was a few years later. I don't know. I think the NFC was changing on his way out. There were some superpowers coming in there. The Rams, I think, really suffer from rules, right? The greatest show on turf is just blowing everybody out of the water. They win that very, very fun to watch Super Bowl against the Tennessee Titans. And then they go back. They actually have another fun Super Bowl with the New England Patriots. But it felt like after that Super Bowl, they lost. That team was kind of over because this was still the era of you could really hit receivers, and that became the thing to just punish these crossing routes. Can that team be successful in this NFL? I don't know. I think this NFL actually is way more sophisticated. And you can see that in the amount of the lack of big plays that we're so used to seeing. I feel like there's just so much containment because these defenses have really, really caught on. And I think we're in an era of really smart players. This is just a different game. It's very cerebral. And this isn't to take anything away from people that played years ago. But when you hear these guys talk, it sounds like just scientists speaking about route recognition and concept recognition from the defensive side. So that, for me, football is really becoming the ultimate chess match. So I'm all in. We have a phone call. And I knew this person was going to call. I knew it. Calling from the 216. Dr. Claw, what's up?
Well, we're here, and Rodgers is a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a very interesting way to frame this whole development with Rodgers in his career and where he is right now, because I don't really hear it really spoken about in those terms. It's more like, the current stuff, like, what kind of conspiracy is he cooking up nowadays? And, he was not playing well on the Jets,
Mm-hmm.
or, all that kind of stuff. The whole, like, this framing, that was nice to hear that leading into this episode. Because, I kind of just saw this happening as soon as the Steelers said, well, we're going to let Justin Fields go off and do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we're done with Russell Wilson. And as time kept going on, like, just the people who would come in and fill in for that team didn't make a lot of sense. I think they only had like Skylar Thompson,
yeah,
who on their roster, and then they added Mason Rudolph, a familiar face, to the roster. And it's like, they're not going into the season with those two guys unless they're like, I just don't see the Steelers being that obvious tanking, and that's what they're going to be doing with that quarterback lineup. And finally, whatever happened, Rodgers is there. I thought that the response from Steeler fans that I know personally or saw on the Twitter timeline, it kind of went between, like, it was either a tepid response or it was like, crap, kind of response. Because, there was a lot of anti-Rodgers sentiment before they decided to go with him. But, like, the pickings were slim when it came to veteran quarterbacks. A lot of the other teams had, picked up players that they were going to go in with the following year. Like, the movement that happened, like Sam Darnold went to Seattle and Geno went to Las Vegas. Still not used to calling it that team from that city.
Yeah, I still say
Oakland in my
Oakland.
head.
Yeah, I still say Oakland. How do you feel about Geno in Las Vegas? Do you think that Geno in Las Vegas is a good move for the Raiders?
Yes, the short answer is yes, because their quarterback situation was abysmal.
Yes.
I don't think they were drafting anybody. They brought in Pete Carroll, who knows Geno very well.
Yeah.
And if anything, that team could have some competency, like something resembling reliable competency on a team going forward, because that was really what was lacking these last couple of seasons with Las Vegas. They look like they're really trying to, like, what I see Las Vegas doing this season and this off season is kind of like, we just want to solidify, something here before we start making major moves with this team.
Mm-hmm.
They may be one of those teams banking on drafting a quarterback next year. But I think that even if they don't,
mm-hmm.
At least they'll have somebody that they know can play the position. And that's kind of how I feel about Las Vegas making that move.
How do you feel
Giants went and got
I do want to ask you, because you mentioned Sam Darnold, who is a fan favorite of Mac and I for various reasons. What do you think about this move to him going to Seattle? Is this a good move for the Seahawks? Is this a good move for Sam Darnold?
That one is kind of up in the air. Like, Seattle wasn't a horrible team,
mm-hmm.
But I guess switching quarterbacks, and they drafted Jalen Milroe, which was the shock of the draft to me. It was, they shipped off DK. He's playing with the Steelers, which come back to that. DK Metcalf going to the Steelers. That's a team I don't really know about what they're planning to do. They could also be in the bucket of, we might be just bringing somebody competent in because we're moving Geno, so that we can plan for maybe drafting another quarterback. Again, I don't know. I don't really know what they're doing. Like, in the NFC West, and I think Cooper Kupp went there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also kind of surprising that he went in division to another. Because, Rams looked like they were going to let him go somehow, but going to Seattle, that's interesting. Sam Darnold. I mean, I think he can swing it. I mean, you've got Cooper Kupp over there. And you don't have DK anymore, but you have Cooper Kupp, you have Jackson Smith, who I really like. There's not going to be any shortage of passing the ball opportunities over there in Seattle. So I think it's an okay move. I don't feel as strongly or comparatively strongly about that I do about Las Vegas, because they just had no quarterback situation worth talking about over there. And now they finally have somebody, and, they are going with a coach who is familiar with them. I just feel like that's a transitional situation with them, but it's a less hopeless situation for Las Vegas. Seattle, I just kind of feel like they stay in the same place, but leave some flexibility for them to, do something later.
What do you think about
I
do have to ask you about your Cleveland Browns, who are just dominating the sports Twitter, because everything Shador Sanders does is under a microscope. And I wrote about this in Damage, and I've said this before on the show. I think there's no one better for that than a guy like Shador Sanders. And maybe next to Las Vegas, Cleveland might be the perfect city for a person like that, because they appreciate anyone that appreciates them. And I think he understands that. He's well media trained. And I think he will thrive in a city that will embrace him. What do you think about Shador Sanders and the quarterback situation in Cleveland? So we're talking about older quarterbacks. Joe Flacco looks to probably be the starter there.
So this is a conversation I find myself in a lot. Now, the official position is that I am an Eagles fan, but this actually has a lot to do with how I feel about what the Browns did.
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, I am 100% glad that he got drafted to the Cleveland Browns and not the Giants and not some of these other teams that he was supposed to go to, including the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a mistake from all of those teams, I think. But Shador, and I'm just talking about the football side of things, I feel like he is an ideal fit for what they're doing over there. They decided they're sticking with Stefanski. They're going back to the 2020 style play action, running the ball type offense. And if you look at Shador's college profile and what he excelled in as a quarterback and the situation he was playing in, he was playing behind an ass line.
Yes.
And still making good throws and still doing a lot of things that, frankly, I know there's always going to be a lot of hype if you're the child of a legendary athlete,
mm-hmm.
and you're playing in that same sport. There's always going to be that. But I think that in some cases it was warranted with Shador. Now, one thing I've learned is that I didn't know what his actual fan following was like,
mm-hmm.
because, as you know, in fact, I'm even passing over being in the Twitter space, because the phone lines were open on this show.
Mm-hmm.
The Shador college fan following is huge. It's almost some people compare it to the Hiat phenomenon with LeBron James, because wherever he's at, those fans are.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that's kind of slipping through the cracks of all this, hype and all this talk about the draft process and how he bombed that and how he got picked in the 5th round and all that peanut butter and jelly stuff. And the funny thing about that too, if you even hint on Twitter about him being the target of collusion by NFL owners,
mm-hmm.
and buying all that propaganda into the reasons as to why he wasn't picked in the first 4 rounds,
mm-hmm.
You get some Nazis in your comments talking about, and I just look at them like with the Heihachi Mishima from Second Base and just be like, I know what you are. You talking about sports like that? It's like that dog meme where it's that dog, the quote unquote homophobic dog that just just stares at the camera and says, I know what you are. That's how I was looking at the motherfuckers talking about all that bullshit about oh, you was a collusion. Yeah, why don't you go take your tongue out of the NFL's butt crack talking that bullshit? Come on.
It was, it's obvious. It was very obvious that that's what it was.
Yeah.
And there was some desperation.
Right, and it wasn't. Yeah, because it's why? I mean, just let's start with the Browns. Why do you draft
Dylan Gabriel
ahead of him? Yeah. Like, even if you think he could be the next Tua, or you kind of drafted him to think, oh, we're just going to pick a guy next year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you pick him before the fifth round in that position. Like, I think him and Sanders should have been swapped as far as draft position was concerned.
Easy.
And that's how the Browns managed to Browns this whole thing. But it's probably going to work out in their favor because it's not just the media training that endears him to a lot of people. Like, a lot of things he says when he knows the attention's on him, he's not, getting self-absorbed by all this stuff. He's getting really smart answers and good, answers to stuff. It's not like he's not his dad when it comes to this sort of thing. Like, he's very measured in how he presents himself. But and here's the elephant in the room, he's actually killing it in camp.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually killing it with the actual, like, there are notoriously hard critics of the Browns as a team, even in the local media, that are looking at what Shador is saying versus the field in that quarterback room and being like, yeah, Shador is just like head and shoulders above everybody else. He's like, he's very accurate. He's composed. He's getting better about some of his footwork and all this stuff. And it's like, the one thing I'll say about that, it's like he's really, the work ethic is very, very, very apparent. And it reminds me a little bit of Jalen Hurts and why he has been successful in this league is because of his work ethic. If he was just some college guy who, played on some, notable teams like Alabama and Oklahoma and stuff, and he didn't have that work ethic, he wouldn't be where he is right now. And I think for somebody that's even at a lower drafting position, like Shador, this could be like frankly, a Brock Purdy type situation for Cleveland. And it's probably what they need to get out from under the Watson experiment, and I will, full disclosure, I was supportive of them going after him after shipping Baker. Because, I remember what he played in. I thought that the Browns should have drafted him in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
The year they drafted Myles Garrett, I forget who else. But there's a whole bunch of funny when you look into that whole story, and you just keeping it on the football side of things,
mm-hmm.
there are a lot of funny things that happened in the previous year draft with the Browns, where they traded out of number 2, which the Eagles took Carson Wentz with, and what they did with the Philly pick, which ended up actually being Deshaun Watson because they traded it to the Texans, and how they got to where they were in that 2017 draft, because that was the Watson Mahomes draft, and it's kind of funny how things worked out with those two teams, Texans and Browns, especially now that you see Nick Chubb signing. But Shador Sanders is very much a high chance of them getting out of jail free card with the Watson situation, and I think that would be for their benefit, sort of like Hurts was the get out of jail free card for the Eagles, where a lot of people don't really, if you're not an Eagles fan, you don't usually talk about it, but like the weirdness that happened after they won the Super Bowl with the back of Nick Foles, and Nick Foles almost bringing him to a deep playoff run a second time, then he taking a large contract to be a starter, Jacksonville, and then Wentz getting injured, and he was always acting weird after they won that Super Bowl, and it was just negative. It was legitimate negative, like locker room energy, legitimate, back and forth with the coach Peterson, which ended up with him getting fired, and Wentz asking for a trade, getting traded to the Colts. Part of that trade is what got them Devontae Smith, by the way. Like, it worked out for the Eagles. Now the Browns haven't been that fortunate with the draft assets and things like that, but the Shador thing might just save them, because there's people speculating, they're still going to draft somebody in 2026. I'm looking like, who is coming out in 26 that is, in my opinion, even better than Shador? Like,
Arch Manning, maybe.
I don't really see it.
Maybe
Archie Manning, I don't think he's going to come out. Yeah, I don't think Archie's going to come out in 26.
He might
I think
not.
he's going to play at least. Yeah, I think he might play like at least 2 full seasons in Texas before declaring, because
we'll see.
Unless he has such a great season in Texas next season, that he might.
We'll see if pro football. This is where. Well, let me. We have another call, so let me get this call, because we're going to do a quicker show tonight. But thank you very much for the phone call, because you gave me a lot to think about. Especially when it comes to the Shador Sanders thing. What's interesting to me about Shador Sanders, and I write about this in Damage Magazine, is that he is a new breed of athlete. But if we go in our Wayback Machine, there was a guy that precedes Shador by about 40 years, and his name is Barry Lamar Bonds. Barry Bonds is the son of a former major leaguer named Bobby Bonds, who also played for the San Francisco Giants. And by all accounts, Barry Bonds is a very hated individual. And much like Shador, I think the difference between the two of them is that they both have fathers that are telling them the media is not your friend. The media is there to create narratives about you and to use you. And I think maybe it wasn't just Barry's father, Bobby, but also Willie Mays. When Willie Mays went to San Francisco, because he's a New York Giant, when the Giants moved, Willie was viewed as New York's guy. He wasn't San Francisco's guy. Willie McCovey becomes San Francisco's guy. So Willie Mays also didn't have a very good relationship with the local media as well. So Barry Bonds is learning early on that the media is pretty mean to black ball players and very racist. And there's a book about Barry Bonds where he's painted as just the largest a-hole of all time. And a lot of the anecdotal stories about him are kind of taken in a vacuum, where the context around the man isn't there. And every story you hear about him, he's just mean to kids. He's mean to old people. He's mean to everybody. Now, I am a Bay Area native. I did work in the peninsula when Barry Bonds was living there. And I actually have friends that know him, and his wife, or his wife at the time. And they tell very different stories of Barry Bonds. And after a hit piece was written about him in Sports Illustrated, there was a letter to the editor from former Giant Todd Benzinger, where he wrote a very different story of Barry Bonds, where he didn't say Barry Bonds. I think the opening line is like, he wasn't the greatest teammate at all. Not at all. But he sure as hell wasn't the worst. He goes, the Barry Bonds I know came to my daughter's birthday party and for 4 hours just made balloon animals for kids. He didn't really talk to any adults, but he made balloon animals for kids. My godson went to go see a Giants game, and they were sitting, I guess, near the players' wives. And he was a little boy at the time. And JT Snow's wife had thought he was adorable. He was an adorable little boy. And gave him an autograph, and then JT Snow called Barry, and they gave him a bunch of autograph stuff and stuff like that. So it's like Barry Bonds and Shador Sanders have the ability to control the narrative about their careers, and they don't really care about whatever is in place. Doesn't matter. That's the fear of Shador Sanders. Barry Bonds is it in real time. He was very well aware of the media and didn't care about them. Never gave them the soundbite that they wanted, which is frustrating for them on one end. And I don't doubt Barry Bonds is probably a douchebag. I'm sure he's done some douchey things, but the Hall of Fame isn't the Hall of Morality, and it's not the Hall of cool dudes. It's the Hall of people that excel at a high level. So I kind of don't care. It's because they set a precedent. They're like, we don't care. We don't care if you were a virulent racist. We literally don't care if you've murdered anyone. If what you've done on the field is great, you can be in this hall. what that man did on the field for his entire career, crazy numbers that we're never going to see those numbers broken. If the game, stays on the trajectory that it's on right now with all this situational stuff, can Shohei stay healthy to possibly break some of those records? Because he might be the greatest baseball player I've ever seen. I mean, who can pitch and be that dominant and also be a leadoff hitter with triple-digit RBIs? Like, dude is and steal bases? It's not fair. It's like he was made in a lab. That being said, we have another. Oh, yes, we do have a call. Sorry, I thought we lost it. Oh, calling from an 843 area code. Caller, what is your name and where are you calling from?
Can you hear me, brother? There's some mouth.
Oh my God! It is Pog Chaser MLK.
We must stop talking about the horrible sport that is American football. We must stop talking about the strip club Olympics, a place even by BBLs and long butt having chicken heads. Anyways, that's all I have for him today.
I just
McDizzle, baby. And
Dizzle, can I just say
I'm gonna go ahead.
Can I just say that I was thinking about your comments about the movie last night, and when you were yelling at the dude for making the girl walk home. So, shout out to you for being fucking hilarious.
Ridiculous. Yeah, that was ridiculous. I was like, what is going on? He's going to give her the most mediocre thing of all time and then be like, oh, hey, well, figure it out. I'm going to go skate away my feelings. Whatever. Like, okay. Weirdest shit I've ever seen in my life. Also, why is he shaved like a fucking seal the whole time? He's like showing off his body. Again, so many fingers have been in that boy. He's all wide-eyed and bushy-tailed from San Diego. Are you kidding me?
Carlsbad, the mean streets of Carlsbad. Yeah.
Exactly. He doesn't know about the, the horrible violating fingers of Hollywood and LA at all. I guess those haven't made it across the state. Anyway, but yes. Listen, I'll have to discount Dr. Claus, whatever Dr. Claus says. I will say this. I will tell you, do not listen to him because football is a gay sport. Okay, it's gayer than 9 guys fucking 10 guys, and I've seen both. All right,
9 guys fucking.
It's the stupidest thing. Yeah, it's the stupidest shit I've ever seen in my life. 90% of the time, ball's not even played. They're just standing around. They're just like, oh, well, I guess I'll just this egg-shaped leather thing is just going to kind of, and then the most fat and out of shape zebras I've ever seen in my life are running that freaking game. It's like, oh, well, I guess it's offside. We're going to talk about this for 15 minutes on the sidelines while no one in the stadium knows anything that's going on at all because there's no announcer in the stadium explaining what the fuck is happening. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. And then everybody that's on either team has their hands on their hips like they dip, you dip. And then they're breathing heavy like they have sleep apnea. Just I had 30 seconds of activity. I need to get oxygen in my body. You're out of shape. You're out of shape and it sucks. It's just boring. And the clock's still running. Oh, okay. Well, I think the football's in play for 2 minutes out of every game that's 3 hours.
You are
The
very
dumbest thing I've ever seen.
you are anti-football. You have to, you
Yeah,
know why you're like
'cause
this? You know why you're like this? Because you're in Green Bay.
Go ahead.
Because you're in Green Bay. That's why you're like
Now,
this.
listen, I grew up in the means of South Carolina. Those streets are not mean, nor are they streets. Okay, they're dirt road paths. But like, yeah, I grew up in South Carolina where like we don't have a football team. And guess what? We're worse for it. It sucks. It's all my hatred of football comes from a place of projection and wanting a national team. Blah 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 blah. No, but really, football is really stupid. It's really dumb. When there's hockey, like hockey's right there, where like literally they built in fighting into the sport.
Mhm.
Like, okay, like I don't. Why are we blowing a whistle when some roided out CTE infused psychopath is smacking some other idiot with a football helmet? Why are we? No, don't blow the whistle. Let them fight. It's fine. You know, there should be a position on a football team that is just a guy on the wings with like a knife.
Oh my god!
And he's just running around trying to catch somebody to stab.
I think you are describing the game rollerball that opens this show.
Listen, yes, I am. Okay, and I'm not talking about that lame 1998 remake. I'm talking about the 1970 rollerball.
Yes, yes.
Starring Scott Conn.
We do not mention the remake. It is never to be uttered. That's why you only get the original rollerball.
That's what I'm saying. Is that like, let's just get there, okay? We're already a crumbling empire in the Roman sense, okay? Let's just get to the Colosseum already. I'm tired of this pussyfooting around with this foosball shit. Like, come on, man. Just start putting gladiators in the fucking ring, okay? I'm done. I'm tired. Everything hurts.
Well, I hope you will join us for the next movie night where I believe we're going to watch the sequel, which isn't a true sequel, to Enter the Ninja, Revenge of the Ninja.
That is the most ridiculous name I've ever heard in my life, but I will be there to watch it. Anyways, football's gay, and by extension, you're gay for... I'm kidding. It's just Pride Month. We're pro-gay here. It's fine. All right. If you want to see a bunch of guys playing grab ass with the tightest of tights that you've ever seen, almost like those pants are painted on, and for whatever reason, shoulder pads, are they going to Vogue later? What's happening? What is the uniform? Why are they having this uniform? And they're wearing knee-high socks?
Man.
Come on, man.
You are just going hard. Look, I can't take all the football slander. Thank you, Dizzle. And I look forward to hearing your comments on Revenge of the Ninja, because there's a whole heroin subplot in this movie. And a little boy.
Listen, I think it's going to be just like every other 80s movie where the true enemy is multinationalism.
That was the bad guy. Which multicultural gangs was the bad guy.
Yeah, it's a multinational gang. What is like, that was the weirdest thing ever. And I think the main bad guy, Tommy, got darker throughout the movie. Like, what happened? What's going on?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you, Dizzle, for the call. You're fucking crazy. And stay crazy. Appreciate you. It's good to know that I can go back. I haven't been to Green Bay. Oh, God. I think the last time I was in Green Bay was 2014, 2015, 2014. I think was the last time I was in Green Bay. It's very uncomfortable. I don't know if I'm going back. But if I do find myself in Wisconsin, I'm glad that I can hang out with Dizzle. That sounds like fun, actually. I got a message this morning from Wild Bill Cody, who you guys know has come on TIR several times, and he spent a lot of time in the film industry. Bill Cody goes, You watched Thrashing the other night, huh? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I worked on that movie. I was like, what? He goes, yeah. The director, or not the director. He knew the set designer who later went on to be a director. She made the movie 13 and another movie, I can't remember. But Bill knew her, and he said she didn't know what she was thinking where they were filming, and they needed to get graffiti on the walls and some other things. And so they called Bill, who he said this was old Bill. This was when he was real Wild Bill in his drinking and drugging days. And he said him and his boy just did all the graffiti. They just put graffiti everywhere. Which is why when you see that movie, the graffiti kind of doesn't make sense. And I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. He goes, yeah, it shouldn't, because I was drunk out of my mind and I remember none of it. So I thought that was great that the movie we watched, Bill was a part of. But we should ask Bill more of those questions whenever we watch a ridiculous movie from the 80s, because if it was filmed in Los Angeles, he was probably there. We talked about Red Dawn, and he's in Red Dawn. He has a scene, his hand or something is in Red Dawn. He worked for John Milius. I'm saying his name right, the guy that did Conan. And of course, Bill directed his own documentary about the Athens music scene in the mid 80s. I am a football fan, regardless of what Dizzle says. And I don't know what's going to happen with the Steelers. I think the Steelers are a franchise in flux. Someone had said earlier that maybe they'll go 9-8. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they actually made a bit of a playoff push, because we don't know which Aaron Rodgers is going to show up. We don't know how the team is going to try to adjust to what he can or can't do. Here's a suit. Thank you, Ken K, for the super chat. As a longtime Steelers fan, I hope Aaron No Jab Rodgers gets his dick handed to him in the first game. Wow! Not the dick hand. So it goes, says, greatest team on turf was just Air Coryell 2.0. Fouts never had a D, though. Defense.
We coming for you, nigga.
Oh, coming for Dan Fouts. Coming for you and your small penis, Dan Fouts. Real quick on this. One of the most underrated, I don't want to say dynasty, because I think you have to win to be a dynasty. And I'll retract the most underrated, because I think you have to win to be underrated. But a team people forget is the San Diego Chargers. And while their defense always comes into question, they did have really good defensive players, but that offense was so dynamic that defense was on the field a lot, which kind of was the problem with the Rams to a certain extent, right? They were just gassing people on offense, but it also causes you to do the same thing on defense. That team was ahead of its time. They had some fantastic players. Some of Charlie Joyner's greatest years, of course, Dan Fouts at quarterback. Wes, I want to say Chandler. Jefferson at wide receiver. They had some really, Chuck Muncie at running back before his drug problems took him out of the game. And people always look at weather as the problem with that team. And I've always found fascinating about this idea that teams as a whole don't know how to play in weather. Is like most of these people come from all over the damn country. And a lot of them come from places where weather is bad. So it's not like they've never seen cold. And on the flip side, it's not like the opposing team all comes from the same area and they've never seen cold or extreme heat. So I don't know if that was the great disadvantage for the Chargers, because it's not like they got blown out 31-7. It was still a relatively close game. And we're talking about the AFC Championship, in which the Chargers lose to the Cincinnati Bengals The game was something ridiculous, like, negative 55 with the wind chill. So it was cold. And I don't think either team wanted to be at Three Rivers Stadium playing on turf that day. That being said, if those Chargers win that game, do they beat that Niner team? And I don't know. Do you think that team could have gassed those Niners? Because is that pre-Lot San Francisco? I can't remember if he was on the 81 team off the top of my head. But that Niners team had a pretty solid defense, and they didn't really blow Cincinnati out offensively. I think Joe Montana passes for like 167 yards that game. He might be 1 touchdown, 2 picks. I don't remember, but he doesn't really have a great line. It was defense that really won that game for him. Remember the gold line stand where Ohio great Archie Griffin can't get in with 4 tries at the goal line. Robert Booth says, hot take, Jerry Rice was the most overrated player ever. West Coast offense was boring.
You having an unnatural allegiance to losers is not like you.
I had to say it because you knew I was going to say it. When you said that, I am a Bay Area native. I love the Bay Area as much as I love my kids. I hate the 49ers. I hate the Raiders. Not a fan of the A's. I like the Giants and the Warriors and the Broncos. It's weird. Leave me alone. That being said, Jerry Rice was everywhere, and he was that good. And the proof in the pudding is what he does at the end of his career in Oakland. He stayed healthy for the most part of his career. He actually got a lot better after the first 2 seasons. I mean, he puts up a lot of yards his rookie year. I think he put up about 900 yards his rookie season, but he's got a little bit of a case of the dropsies. And he works on that, and he gets better, and he becomes one of the most sure-handed receivers in the game. Now, to say the West Coast offense is boring, I would say, Robert Booth, let's you and I watch a football game from 1978. Let's watch the Minnesota Vikings play the Dallas Cowboys in 1978. I guarantee it is akin to watching paint dry. It's just, the game was very different from the formations. If you go back, not watch a highlight, watch a game from that era. Pro formations. Oh, dude. They might as well be running the option half the time. Having an actual fullback in there. This is a very different game. Niners really revolutionized football. And it took a lot of people a long time to catch up with what they were doing offensively with the short pass game. So I don't know if I would go so far as to say that it wasn't exciting to see. There was just a moment where they were just mud stomping everybody. Dude, so many people were getting the shit kicked out of them by the Niners. Go back and watch. You know what? Watch the Rams play in 83 and watch the Niners play in 83. And you tell me which one you'd rather watch. And 83 is Eric Dickerson's 2,000-yard season. You're going to have to wait a minute before he pops a big run. He popped some massive runs that year. But it's like watching the Lions play when Barry Sanders was there. Like, are you on the you're always waiting for the big run, but sometimes it doesn't happen a lot. With the Niners, it was consistently kicking your ass. And they were really good defensively as well. And this is from a person that does not like the Niners because they destroyed my team. And anyone that's a Niners fan that knows I'm a Broncos fan will bring that up like it's yesterday. We beat you 55-10. Bitch, that was like 40 years ago. Let it go. Okay. And Charles Ghost said Sam Darnold, former Niner bench warmer, the backward passer, the choker of all chokers. Jesus Christ. Charles Ghost, did Sam Darnold do something to your girlfriend? Just kidding. I like Sam Darnold. I liked him at USC. I thought Sam Darnold, it was part of that new breed of white quarterback that is quite fleet of foot. He's a pretty smart guy under center, and he has a rocket for an arm. So I knew he'd be good. Good and great, I think, is subjective, and football, like all these other sports that we're talking about, are team sports. This isn't boxing. So it takes a team. Dan Fouts was as good as any quarterback in the Hall of Fame. But that whole team didn't have it. So he doesn't have the championships. Dan Marino, maybe one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. Didn't have Jim Kelly. People remember the Bills teams. They forget how good Jim Kelly was, how pretty of a deep ball he threw. The whole team, the team as a whole, didn't have it. So I know there's a lot of Sam Darnold hate. I just say this. The guy played on a pretty good team 1 year, and he put up massive numbers, and that team went in the playoffs. Is it all him? Does any blame fall on the coaching? Again, I don't think he's the greatest quarterback of all time, but I think he's pretty good. I think he can take your team to the playoffs and maybe even to the dance. I think he's better than Brock Purdy. But he's more expensive than Brock Purdy. And if you get rid of a guy like Brock Purdy, who's really cheap, and the fans kind of dig for a guy that everybody loves shitting on, I'm going to get rid of you and keep Brock Purdy, even if Purdy flames out. No one's going to shit on me for getting rid of Sam Darnold, but everyone's going to shit on me if I get rid of the fan favorite that has the little engine that could kind of hero's journey story behind him. When you're drafted in the first round, if you don't put up and take a team to the Super Bowl, people look at you like you are a bust. And I've never really understood that, because if you look at most first round picks, they don't go to the Super Bowl. And they don't do very well. If you look at Vinny Testaverde, who had a 22-year NFL career, something along those lines, threw for over 46,000 yards, was a quality starter, went to some playoffs, but he also went to some horrible teams. He went to the worst franchise in the NFL that's just getting out of being the worst franchise in the NFL. That's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay Buccaneers were horrible for like 50 years. They were fucking just the dregs of the league. And they've had flashes of, oh, no shit. Right? In 79 with Doug Williams and Leroy Selman and James Wilder and all those guys that go to the NFC Championship game. But then, Williams has all his problems, and the rest is the coaching turnovers. And he went from playing on a team filled with literal NFL Hall of Famers to playing on a team that probably couldn't beat his college team. And man, he just got pummeled. And most people that get pummeled, David Carr is a great example. I think David Carr could have been a really good quarterback in the NFL. But when you break records for getting sacked, I don't think it's because he's hanging on to the ball too long. I think it's because the team was that bad. He's going to an expansion team. Vinny Testaverde did not go to an expansion team, but he might as well have gone to an expansion team when he gets drafted in 87 by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tell me who played on that team with him. I would love to know who he was throwing to. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Is he a bust? A 22-year career, 46,000 yards, years after, like what, 10 years after he gets drafted, 10 plus years, he goes to the Jets, takes the Jets to the AFC Championship game. They lose to the Broncos, but he was a quality starter for a long time. Is Alex Smith a bust? You know, he had some devastating injuries, but when he was healthy and he had a decent team around him, he was pretty good. So I think the bust moniker gets thrown at everybody because we love lists. We love, you know, commenting and saying who's the greatest flop of all time. I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to think about that. Who's the greatest worst person ever? Like, that sounds like a horrible conversation to have. I don't sit around with Ben Burgess. Who's the greatest worst dictator? Whose kill count's the highest? I don't think about that. So Namath's career numbers really aren't impressive, but I think he deserves the great label just for the guaranteed win in Super Bowl III. That's another guy. Go back and watch a Joe Namath game from the 70s, and I think that's a little more exciting because he did air it out quite a bit. He was ballsy. I think him guaranteeing a win in 69, is it, that Super Bowl III happens, is kind of par for the course for who Joe Namath was at that time. He was just brash, and he figured he could do anything. So it works out for him. But again, that's a Super Bowl where his numbers aren't very good. I think he throws for 216 in that game. Double check me, but I think he throws for like 216. Maybe he has a touchdown pass. I can't remember. Yeah, who's the greatest philosopher? I don't know. Drea says she always likes Peyton Manning. Good call. I hated Peyton Manning when he played for the Colts because the Colts used to just dismantle the Broncos in the playoffs. But when he became a Bronco, I was all in. I was all fucking in. So it goes, says Western PA made some great QBs. Unitas, Namath, Kelly, Marino, and Montana. Yes, that's very true. I don't know what's in the water or what was in the water over there because it doesn't seem to be happening anymore. Barry Sanders is my all-time favorite, but Jason is correct. He was just as likely to dance around and lose 5 yards as to break off a 60-yard run. Remember, like I don't know where a lot of you guys grew up. I grew up in California, so right. And before you had a satellite and you could watch every game, you got whatever was the game the NFL gave you. And whenever we would get a Lions game, a guy that's been on this show quite a few times, Coach Will, his favorite teams, the Indiana Pacers and the Detroit Lions. Loves those teams. And he was all in with Barry Sanders. And whenever we got to watch a game, it's like, damn, this dude takes a lot of 5-yard losses. But then he bust off a big ass run or take a screen pass to the house. And it was all worth it. And we really thought, we had hope for the Joey Harrington years as well. Let's see here. I'm trying to read your guys' comments because Robert Booth says he likes the Giants and the Cowboys. You mean the New York Giants or the San Francisco baseball Giants? I hope you like the San Francisco baseball Giants, not the New York football Giants, because yeah, Nuri says it's an insane take. The Niners also got Fred Dean at the trade deadline. I do remember that, Joseph McGovern. Fred Dean was a San Diego Charger. That was Riverfront, not Three Rivers. Wrong. Ashtray Stadium. Well, I'm sorry. Sorry. All that Ohio, Pittsburgh shit is the same to me. Who was the quarterback on the Bengals Super Bowl team that lost to the Niners? Was it Anderson? Yes, it was. It was Ken Anderson. Tony says Chargers Fouts, the Dolphins Marino of the 70s and early 80s. The only reason I would say no is because Dan Marino really took it upon himself to be like, I'm going to do what I want to do. And Dan Fouts followed a system. That's, I think the similarity people see is statistically because they both put up, massive numbers, but Dan Fouts is part of, and I'm not saying he's a system quarterback, ergo take away his stats or diminishes it. No. I'm just saying that he played within a system that really played well with what he did. And Marino made the system come to him. Go watch the Super Bowl that the Dolphins are in with David Woodley. The year he gets drafted, the year before he gets drafted in 82, where they lose to the Redskins. And then go watch the 84 Dolphins and tell me that's the same playbook. Oh, God, no. God, no. That 83 draft is a fascinating draft, not just for the guys that came out of it, but look at some of the seasons that happened in their second year. Marino passes for like 2,200, I think, maybe 2,800 his rookie season. And this is in 1983. People aren't really putting up fat numbers like that. Quarterbacks are leading the league in passing outside of people like Dan Fouts at like 3,200 yards. The next year, he sets records that it takes almost 40 years to break. He passes for 5,000 yards and 48 touchdowns. His second year. Eric Dickerson's first year, he runs for 1,800. That's nuts. 1,800. That's the number 2 pick in the draft. So it wasn't like they were dominating when he got there. And the next year, his second year, he runs for 21. People can't break it in a 17-game season? Man. Insane numbers those guys were putting up early in their career. Jim Kelly went to the USFL. He was putting up massive numbers. He came out in the 83 draft as well, but of course for the USFL. So that is one of the reasons why that draft class is so fascinating to me, because they just were so good. Like the game starts to change when those guys come out. Like guys like Roger Craig is in that draft in the later rounds as well. Darrell Green is in that draft, who, might be the last of these short cornerbacks. I think he was like 5'7", 5'8", but played a long time in the NFL. Stayed healthy. He's got some Super Bowl rings. A very effective corner at 5'7", 5'8". And granted, he wasn't. Receivers were still 5'10". There's a handful of 6-footers, but he's still in the NFC East. I believe Harold Carmichael is still playing at 6'7". First football game I went to was the Philly Stars back at the Vet. Shout out! My first football game was the Oakland Invaders. It was a USFL game. 5,000 yards and 5,084 yards and 48 TDs. That's Dan Marino says 84. Fuck me running. Doug Williams beat the Lions in 91. Also, Jason, tell us why that is unjust. For those that don't know, I hate Doug Williams. I hate Doug Williams to the point where I turn into Uncle Ruckus. Hate Doug Williams. Doug Williams, had he sat his black ashy ass on the bench, he didn't start the game. Oh, actually, I'm lying. He did start the game. Doug Williams started the game and he got injured. But he wasn't the starter that season. Jay Schrader was the starter that season. And Jay Schrader is a mixed bag. Oh, rocket arm, just rocking it all over the place sometimes. Pretty inconsistent. Was not Joe Theismann, who he kind of replaced in Washington. But the Broncos get off to a very good start in that Super Bowl, and I felt redemption after the loss of the Giants the year before. The fastest touchdown in NFL history, Elway to Ricky Nattiel in Super Bowl history, right? I'm all excited. And then, bam, Doug Williams gets knocked unconscious. Today, Doug Williams goes in that fucking tent, can't come back in. NFL doctor's like, nah, dude, you're seeing way too many stars. Sit down. Jay Schrader will do this. We beat the shit out of the Redskins 45-10. No. Broncos are up 10-0 and maybe even 10-3. And just beating the shit out of Jay Schrader. Doug Williams comes back in and maybe has the greatest quarter of any sport. Maybe Klay Thompson when he hit like 40 or whatever he did a few years ago in one quarter. I can't think of another quarter that great. When you're a fan of a team and they're down by like 3 scores, and you're like, okay, if we just get the ball back and we kick it on, and then they punt and we get the ball back, right? And you're thinking about how you can beat time, not the opponent, but time. The Redskins scored 35 points in the second quarter. Beat the brakes off my brain. They were scoring from every angle. And Doug Williams, that black motherfucker. God, I hate Doug Williams. And then everybody's like, he's the first black quarterback in the history of black quarterbacks to win the Super Bowl. And I was supposed to be happy about that, but he beat my Broncos. I don't care if it was my dad out there. Fuck that nigga. How dare you? You know I love the Broncos. Hate fucking Doug Williams. Timmy Smith at running back. That was his only game. It was his only game. Sadly, Timmy Smith had a horrible drug problem, and he ran for 200 yards that game. Crazy. How's that? 83 draft is probably the equivalent of the 96 NBA draft. Ooh, shout out to Joseph McGovern. Never seen you in here, Joseph McGovern. But please come back. That is a really good take. Yeah, at halftime I was like, I'm finally gonna see my team in the Super Bowl. Then I watched it all slip away. Doug Williams, man. One of the more tragic figures in sports, actually. So when I take my clan hood off and just from a football perspective, think about what he was able to accomplish. Here's a guy that you're a black quarterback in an era where black athletes at all are problems. All of you guys are going to be drug problem people. All of you guys are going to be from the hood and illiterate. Even up until the 90s, there was always a storyline about like, he's a star athlete, but he can't read. On the next 90210, we finally got a black guy in here, and he can't read. Dun, dun, dun. So Doug Williams, and this is before even too, like, oh, all these black quarterbacks are these like crazy athletes and they have to run. Jesus. This is still the era where if you're a black quarterback and you excel at the college level, you've put up the numbers. You can throw the ball. You can read a defense. All the things. People go, we should draft that guy. He's got it all. You get to the NFL, like, you know what? You should be a safety. You got good feet. I've been playing quarterback since I was 5. We get that. Maybe you can see the field real good like a safety because you have good feet. Doug Williams defies all that. It's coming out of black back. This is still too with, there's a handful of good black players that are coming out of black universities. Walter Payton, I believe, came out of one. Jerry Rice. And he does pretty good. His first couple of years, I think it's year 3 or so, when the Buccaneers, maybe if he's in his second year, where he takes the Buccaneers to the NFC Championship game. That is a massive feat. We're talking about a team that over a 2-year span won one game. And that's right around the time that he's getting there. Totally turns everything around. And then some tragedy strikes, his wife dies. That's rough. And he had like a little kid. And nobody wanted to pay this nigga no money. He was like, well, USFL is finna give me money. I'll take your chocolate ass to the USFL then. I don't give a fuck about you. And you think you finally got a shot. Because the USFL is like anything goes. Like the ABA, right? Anything goes. Whatever the conservative league is doing, we'll do the opposite. They want to run the ball, we'll throw that shit all over the place. Right? Al Davis and the bomb. Throw the bomb. Remember Randy Moss said Al Davis was calling from the bomb. Throw the bomb. Think about that. When you're a little kid and you're playing two-hand touch, like the bomb is like how you're gonna, do this thing go along. Hit you with the bomb. That was the most innovative shit ever. Because me and Mac joke about this all the time. A forward pass, you say? That's crazy thinking, McGinty. Doug Williams tries to earn his way back into the league. He's backing up Jay Schrader, who obviously he's a lot better than, as a concussed man. They score 7 touchdowns in the second quarter. So, but yeah, not a fan of Doug Williams at all. I miss some Negro talk. Mr. Crash. Doug Williams was a nigga. His mama was a nigga, and his daddy was a nigga. He's from a family ain't shit niggas. Doug Williams, I doubt you're watching, but if this gets back to you, just know that you destroyed 1988 for me. But now at 47 years old, I can be like, well, I guess it was good for Doug Williams. Every Steeler fan forgets Joe Gilliam. Terry Bradshaw got hurt. Was that the 76 or the 77 season? So it goes. Was it the 76 season? Joe Gilliam came in. Another player that people say the drug addiction cut his career short, or was it racism? I don't know. But the leash was not very long for the black quarterback in the 70s. And then by the 80s, you're pretty much out of the game. So the ascendancy of Doug Williams and then later Randall Cunningham really starts to open up the door for the possibility of the black quarterback. Because he still exists at the high level. But when we think about certain universities that were producing a lot of NFL talent at the quarterback position, they never had black guys there. They were really, again, Miami. It took them forever. Took Miami forever to have a black quarterback. Penn State. USC has had black quarterbacks since the 70s that actually played in the NFL. Think of another school. I can't think off the top of my head. But a lot of schools that we look at as like these dominant powerhouses just didn't have black guys at the quarterback position. So when you start seeing them at the tail end of like the wishbone era, they can serve a dual purpose. And I think that's what we're seeing, kind of circling back to the NFL draft where we are now. That's what we're seeing with a guy like Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe is willing to put the work in at the quarterback position to be a good quarterback, and he's also willing to do what it takes to make a team. So Jalen Milroe is willing. We say slash because there's a guy named Cordell Stewart that played for the University of Colorado at Boulder, and I don't remember if he was on the national championship team, but I feel like he was. But I feel like Darian Hagan was the quarterback that year that they won in '95. So I could be wrong. Someone in the chat correct me if he was on the national championship team. But Cordell Stewart was a lot of fun to watch. And he went to the NFL. When he got drafted, everyone goes, well, he's a little small because he's a little under 6 feet. But Cordell was put in, they've made these packages for him because he was so dynamic as just a playmaker. So they put him in they shot him out wide, running back, quarterback positions with not so much designed runs like we see out of the shotgun. That's definitely a Michael Vick thing. Running a shotgun wishbone spread type thing or a shotgun option really starts with Michael Vick. And we see how to run it properly at the University of Nevada with the pistol. Colin Kaepernick put up insane numbers rushing and throwing the ball there because of that system. And the NFL has since, for the most part, caught up to it. But a guy like Jalen Milroe can come in packages and do some things. The question is, how does that hinder Sam Darnold? People forget Sam Darnold's not 47. He's not Aaron Rodgers' age. He's really young. So bringing in another young guy, even if you're bringing him in to do crazy packages with Darnold, Sam Darnold's also not that slow. I wouldn't doubt if they had 40 times that weren't too far off because they're both big dudes. So they kind of can take the pounding. That didn't sound right. You know what I mean. It's 1974. Gillum started the season and was the first black to start a season opener after the merger. Not Marlon Briscoe? Isn't that after the merger? Denver Broncos, Marlon Briscoe? I feel was it start a season opener? Oh, he said season opener. Yeah, Briscoe didn't start the season. He actually came in relief and then finished the season. Okay. Then that sounds about right. Then so it goes. Oh, Joseph McGovern says he was the year after. So it means Cordell Stewart. So, okay. I couldn't remember what year he came out. Was it 98? Cordell Stewart came out to the NFL. But he was a lot of fun. He was a lot of fun to watch. But still, the black quarterback wasn't really thought of as a guy that can sit in the pocket and throw the ball. To this day, again, this is something me and Mac talk about all the time. There's still people that look at a quarterback of color and can't see a guy that wants to just sit in the pocket and throw the football. CJ Stroud is that quarterback. CJ Stroud to me is more Dan Marino than he is anyone else. Like Warren Moon is probably the last of the guys who got to just sit in the pocket or sit in shotgun and just tear you apart. After that, people forget that every colored guy that wants to throw the ball just wants to throw the ball. He does not want to run with it. I believe Stewart did throw with gloves on. Charles goes. So yeah, we gotta give Doug Williams his props. Kind of, and it just pains me because whenever I see his black ass, fucking Redskins jersey with the pockets in it, I fucking hate him. Ah, he beat the shit. 7 touchdowns. 7. Broncos had these receivers called the Three Amigos: Mark Jackson, Ricky Nattiel, and Vance Johnson. And I thought the Three Amigos were the most terrifying group of receivers in the NFL. I bought all the propaganda. Three Amigos. Johnny always got 3 amigos. You can't stop us. All those dudes combined probably look like a bunch of children standing on each other's shoulders with a trench coat, trying to act like an adult. Those dudes were small and quick. And I'm over here thinking that these 3 5'7" receivers are going to dominate the game. I mean, I did like watching those guys play, but it's a different game. It's a different game. Let's see. Tony Red Duke had 3 amigos. 3 fucking amigos. I was like, Vance Johnson is the greatest wide receiver of all time, and his high top fade is better than Jerry Rice's high top fade. That's why I can't take Robert Booth's comments seriously. I'm a fan of a team that had a really good quarterback with some pretty good receivers. Pretty good and great is the difference in 4 Super Bowl wins and 4 Super Bowl ass whoopings. Something to think about. Is an athlete using steroids like a porn star using blue chews? I don't know if all athletes use steroids. Not every position. I don't know if they have to. And there's some downsides to steroids as far as like muscle injuries. So I don't know. I'd love to know. Maybe growth hormone to get back from injury quicker. 1974 Gillens. Yeah, okay, that's what we read that one. Okay, I think we've done enough. Elway was our leading rusher for 2 of those goddamn Super Bowls. Think about the Broncos' run game was so bad. Sammy Winder. Then we had Bobby Humphrey, whose son plays for the. I think he's still with the Baltimore Ravens. I thought that was going to be the difference maker. Nah, dude. Nah, just weren't that good. We had really small defensive line. Mac is fine. I'll let him tell you where he was, but Mac is fine. And I'll definitely let Mac know that people missed him. He'll be happy to hear that. I'll be back tomorrow with Ben Burgess. And Saturday will be a fun show. We're gonna do maybe we'll open up the phone lines again. If you guys didn't cause me to lose too much money, let's see. Oh fuck. Oh yeah, I lost too much money. God damn. I was gonna say I'll open the phone line Saturday because it's a dating show. And I love opening the phone lines for dating shows because that shit to me is hilarious. So let's cross our fingers that some things work out. Oh, and maybe I'll open up the phone lines. Mac ditched us. He didn't ditch you for a concert again. I'll have to let Mac tell you. But he did send me footage from both of the concerts he went to. He was so fired up. Going to see Wu-Tang and Metallica. That's pretty cool. Thank you guys. Are Jason and Ben going to stream from the Terrace Bros? No, Ben's still in Los Angeles, and he has a new place. He's living down the hill. He's down the hill with the ruffians. So he'll be moving into his new place. And And then Toussaint has convinced me to do a show about the craziest shit ever. I think it's the craziest shit ever. I didn't believe it was real. I'll end with this. This is a very non-sports thing to end with, but I think it's ridiculous. Hopefully you guys leave comments about this. There was a black woman driving around these protests, riots, whatever you want to call them in Los Angeles. And she's yelling. She's got like a bullhorn. She goes, "All black people, go home. This is not your fight. Go home, black people." And I was like, "Word? That's crazy." Even if you believe that more, and there's numbers to back it up, and this is all about voting. That's what makes it even more stupid. Even if you believe more Latin people voted for Trump for whatever reason, those same people came out during the BLM protests too. So it's not like they weren't. It's insane. Fucking sane. If that's the logic you're using, which I think is just ridiculous and flawed. And there's other black people. This is not our fight. They didn't come out and defend us. I'm like, dude, this is retarded. So Toussaint had said something about it. We should do a show about this. And I was like, no, I don't want to. I was not having a good day. And I saw another thing on it. So I sent her a message. I was like, you were right. We're going to do a show on this. That'll be a show we're going to do next week as well. That should be interesting. And of course, Alex Herbert will be coming back next week. So a lot going on in the TIR verse. Stay tuned. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I hope I didn't bore you guys to death. But let's see what happens to Aaron Rodgers. I don't know him. We actually have some people in common that we know. So maybe Pittsburgh is the spot where he goes out with a Super Bowl victory. Like the only two other guys to do it, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. Who knows? But until then, I am out.